On Saturday, it will be 20 years since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. Today, our Lisa Sugart starts a two-part series looking back at the tragedy and how our area will continue to remember those who were lost.
You're watching a Local News 13 special report on a national tragedy. With more on how today's events affected the greater Hazleton area, here's Janine Lassant.
Today's a national tragedy, a terrible day in history for the United States of America. The World Trade Centers collapsed in New York City, and the Pentagon was hit in Washington, D.C. as part of a terrorist attack on our country. Thousands of people are dead tonight.
Every year since those horrific attacks on September 11th, 2001, the city of Hazleton has come together to remember those lost and to pay tribute to those who paid the ultimate price that day. That memorial made possible by the good efforts of two gentlemen from the city of Hazleton, one who has since moved to Florida. I'm pleased to be joined by the two men who started the memorial and one who also continues it to this day. Tony Colombo, current Vice President of Hazleton City Council and also the President of the Hazleton Heights Volunteer Fire Company, and Joe Bugda. Joe is a former Hazleton City firefighter and the former President of the Hazleton Heights Volunteer Fire Company. Joe joins us from Florida. Tony joins us from Hazleton. Thanks, you guys. I'm glad to reunite you two. You did such great work together, and I'm sure your friendship continues. You made it all happen that there is this Hazleton Remembers event each and every year on or around September 11th. Tony, let's start with you. How did this all begin?
It began on that tragic day of September 11th, and I was working that day and I heard a plane hit the towers, and I said, what could we do in Hazleton? We could do our part. So we volunteered a bunch of paramedics. We were going to go to New York to help out. And tragically, they said that unfortunately there was not going to be that many rescues. There were just going to be recoveries, and they didn't need us. So then that's when we put Plan B in effect, which, well, you know, as it's gone since then.
It's amazing that you all organized it so quickly. Joe, you were here at the time, and you and Tony, like, you just meshed and you knew you wanted to do this. Why was it so important for you to do this, Joe?
I remember being at Holy Rosary the morning that Tony dedicated the flagpoles and the memorial that's there right now. And at the time, I wasn't involved with the city fire department. I was involved with the neighboring fire department. But I was very touched to see the amount of dedication that Tony put into it at that point. And I kind of felt the same way deep inside, where I couldn't go to New York. I couldn't go to New York to help with rescue operations, but what can I do local? What can we do right here in our city to help the city and the nation, the country, remember the tragic events of that day? So it was shortly after Tony did the dedication there to Holy Rosary that I approached Tony, started a friendship almost immediately, ended up joining the city fire department, and the rest is a 20-year history that I'm very proud of.
I was pleased to interview both of you and to continue to do so each and every year. Tony, so it began with the fire pole and the monument that is there. That was originally there for 2002 when you had the very first memorial event. Is that correct? And then it expanded because you got a piece of metal from the World Trade Center.
Yeah, and the 50th year, I don't like to call it an anniversary, but the 50th year remembrance, Vinny Tamino, who's been in New York City firefighter, retired, he contacted Joe and I, and he said there's possibly a piece of steel available. So Joe and I went to the training site in New York, met Vinny, and we actually watched the guy in the yard cut a piece with the torch, and Joe and I brought the piece of steel and several rivets back to Hazleton that we included in our memorial at Holy Rosary Church on the 5th year.
When Vinny said he would help you, and he did, he got you the piece of metal, and then he was part of the program himself.
The first year he got here late because he had other issues, but you could tell Joe and I all the time he could be anywhere on 9/11, anywhere, because obviously he was in New York City fire, but he does not want to be in New York, so he adopted Hazleton, and he was in Hazleton, was with us for many years. And now, unfortunately, his health is not as good as it once was, but he's still here with us in spirit. And when Joe and I went to get that piece of steel, it was a very emotional day. Joe and I think we had wet eyes the whole time. He showed us a bunch of memorials. The trucks that were damaged that day. You get choked up still till today.
You can watch part 2 of Lisa's story on Thursday right here on SSPTV News.
Today's news feature is brought to you by Feisner's Ford in Freeland, who is celebrating 75 years in business. Give them a call at 570-636-3920, or you can log on to feisnersford.com.